Okay, we are live.
Yeah.
Good day, everyone. You are welcome to another exciting edition of our conversation, Aloud with Ike. Today is going to be wonderful because I have a great guest with me tonight. Okay, it's night, it's evening time here in West Africa, so it could be morning time elsewhere in America. So this evening, I welcome you all to our exciting conversation aloud with Ike. Today, I'm having someone who I've known for quite some time, and she is a storyteller, she's a professional speaker, and we are going to have the discourse on what talk are you walking. And in our words, it says that we wear our wares, weaving the warp and weft of our limitations with words. We build the high fences of our limitations. We tell our story every day, not realizing the power that lies within the telling and the listening. There, in the space between, magic can be found and profound changes can be made. Our guest for today, she is born, or she was born in Glasgow. She began working at the local zoo. Very interesting. At the age of 11. At the age of 11, she started working in a zoo. Through a rebellious act in secretarial class, this began a career with she began a career with animals that went on to see her becoming a veterinary nurse, working in Monaco and France, Monaco in Spain, and back to London where she became head nurse of a busy small animal practice in Pina. After 35 years, she hung up her stethoscope and became a master practitioner of NLP, Erickson hypnosis, and storytelling. She has many healing modalities that can be used to bring balance and harmony back into view. Formal training in shamanic practice, and it began since 2003 in Glastonbury with Howard and Elsa Mappers of the Warrior in the Heart Foundation. Since then, she has worked with shamans in Canada, France, Nepal, and Tibet, and some more locally in the UK. Storytelling is a passion for her, and it cannot be helped, for we all tell stories all the time. Is the telling of them on purpose that allows us to understand the power of the story to heal or to harm. Metaphor is magical, and the magic is in the mundane. It is particularly important when it comes to healing the self. Understanding the role of the opponent in our lives. Our guest for today lives and works in Lanarkshire with her husband Andrew, and is still working globally online. That's so wonderful. Our guest for today is no other person than somebody who I always see to be very, very excited all the time. And we'll be talking about walking the talk, walking the talk. And there's this big question: whose talk are you walking? Did somebody Are you living the life somebody said you should live, or you are living your life? So today we are going to expose those things to you. I think the idea is for you to understand whose talk are you walking, for you to understand then how to disconnect yourself from other people's talk and start walking your talk. Without wasting time, I'm going to make welcome my guest for today, and she is Leslie Marsh. Come on, I do clap all the time.
Hello.
Let me clap. Welcome. That was a long,
Hey.
that, yeah.
Hello.
Welcome. That was the long one I read. I just want to do it because I want people to understand who you are.
Yes,
So,
and I'm
yeah.
still learning. I'm still
Oh,
learning because
yeah.
I'm walking a talk that I'm making. I'm walking a new story every day
Oh,
with
oh,
each
that's
person
cool.
that I meet. So this is what I mean by whose talk are you walking? Because we are usually, as you've said, like we're usually watching and walking the paths that other people would have us walk. We're walking their ambitions, we're talking their ambitions, their expectations of who we should be, and what we should do, but actually were we put here for their purpose? That was their thing to do. And maybe we do want to take this on. Maybe we have a passion to be a doctor or to be a vet or to be a solicitor, a lawyer. Or maybe we just want to be a reader or a storyteller. Or maybe just be an animal person who works with animals or works with children. We don't really know, but we have these expectations that are built into us from when we're very, very young. And sometimes they fall very short of what we can actually do. Now, Iyke mentioned that I had a little rebellious moment in a secretarial class because that's what I was supposed to do. When I was very young and still at primary school, first school, my mother was told that I would never make anything of myself because I could not count. And basically, they believed the person who was telling them because they were a teacher. How could you not believe this? Unfortunately, what was going on was I have what's called dyscalculia, which is number blindness. It's like dyslexia with numbers. But of course, it wasn't invented in those days. I'm very old. And so my parents believed this, and therefore their expectations for me fell.
Yeah.
The ground was lowered. And my mother said, but you don't need to have numbers to be a secretary. It's a nice, clean job. And let's face it, you're going to get married anyway, and then you won't have to work. This was the very early 60s. So basically, in those days, that was what was expected of a woman in Britain at the time. You only got work until you got married, and then you didn't have to do it anymore. Now, I was a reasonably biddable child, but there was something in me that just did not really want to sit and type all day, every day. And in those days, the typewriters were massive. They were huge. And you had muscles on your pinkies, like Arnold Schwarzenegger's biceps by the time you had finished stomping these letters onto a page. And it happened to be that in this secretarial class, there was a teacher who was very like, think of a really, really gruff monster, Genghis Khan in a dress. She has always a very bad mood, very stern face, and she could give the belt very well, and she enjoyed it sometimes, we always thought. So everybody was very, very well behaved in her class. Silence ensued, apart from the clack, clack, clickety clack of these typewriter keys. And it was a very sunny day, and I was sitting there, and the sun was coming in through the window, and I thought, no, can't do it. Don't want to do it. It's just not me. So I pulled the paper out of the roller and put in another one and started to write, "Dear Sir, I would like to work in your zoo because I love animals." And then the world came to a full stop. The sun went out, and this tweed-covered arm shot across my shoulder and ripped the paper out and went off, held aloft in her hand as she stomped out of the door, clickety-clacking on her high heels. Total silence ensued. And they were all sitting there, 30 other pupils, their eyes watching me and thinking to themselves, "Whoa, thank goodness it's not me. I've not done it this time. She's done it and she's going to get belted." It seemed like I waited a year in that classroom. And then I heard my name being called, and she called me through. And I got to that door, and my hands were sweating, and my breath was being held, It was almost burning in my chest because I'd forgotten to actually let it go. So I knocked on the door and she said, "Come in." She was just putting the phone down on the cradle, because they had cradles in those days. And she said, "Are you really serious about this?" Now, that took me totally by surprise, because I was expecting, "How dare you? You're going to get belted now. You're wasting my time. You're wasting paper in the class. Why are you here even? What are you doing? You're useless." The litany that I'd heard before of the marks that get made and impounded and compounded all day, every day, when you don't do things quite the way that people would expect you to. So I thought, I have nothing to lose. If I'm going to get belted, and no matter what I say, it doesn't matter. So I said, "Yes, I'm serious about it. I do not want to be a secretary. I hate the idea of being a secretary. I can't stand the idea of being locked in a room every day for 5 days a week and just sitting there while the sun's shining outside and I could be free and walking around and doing what I would really love to do." "Good," she says. Good. I thought, I've walked into another dimension. This is a dream. It has to be a dream. So I'm still, my jaw is on the floor. And she says to me, "I've got you an appointment at the zoo at 11 o'clock on Sunday. You're going to meet with the curator and he's going to give you a job. But my mother, don't worry about your mother. I will talk to her." Now, the interesting thing about this is the next part, because what she said to me after that really hit home. Apart from her saying, "Don't disappoint me," which, would I ever? She said to me, "I'm going to tell you something, and if you tell any of that lot out there, you will get belted. But when I was your age, I wanted to work with animals, and they wouldn't let me." This explained so much about her demeanor. It explained so much about how she hated to be in the job that she was in every day, why she was in such a bad temper, because she wasn't fulfilled. She wasn't walking her talk. She was walking the talk of her parents. Now, when I started finding my voice, when I started finding my talk, it took me to the zoo, yes, and it took me to some really brilliant adventures and meeting different people. And occasionally, well, if I'm truthful, more than occasionally, it would get me into a little bit of trouble. But what's an adventure here and there? Because that's what life is about. It's about the adventure here and there. So when we're walking through life and we're needing to be knowing what's going on, we have to actually understand that what we hold inside is really there to come out. This is why we have this pipe here. This is why we have this idea that we can actually move, we can actually use our voices, be our own spirit, walk our own path, understand who we are. And it doesn't happen all at once. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens step by step. Because it's never going to be an easy road. Because the people who had those expectations don't just go away because you want to be there, because you want to understand what's going on. They don't go away at all. They stay. And they wait for you to get over your little fancy. "Oh yes, wants to work with animals. Well, she'll get bored. She'll grow up and she'll realize that you know, life is so much more to offer than shoveling things at the back end of an elephant for all of your life. Well, actually, it does. But it doesn't have to be not with animals. That's just a starting point. But it's dealing with the disappointment sometimes. To deal with the disappointment, their disappointment, the fact that you should be dutiful. You have to be dutiful. Now, duty is a good thing. We have to observe duty more often than not. It's part of our moral compass. But we also have a duty to ourselves. We also have the right to be happy. And if we make a mess of it, that's fine. At least we try. And it's in the trying that we actually discover how much of what we want to do is right for us.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it is. Sometimes it's a case of, oh, I quite fancy doing that because I'm kind of bored doing this. And then we walk a little bit towards it and realize that it's a little bit too much like hard work. Maybe not. But you know, if you're really passionate about something and it's really in your heart, the work is never too hard. And if you really, really want to know how to do things, there's always a different way. I couldn't count, so how did I become a veterinary nurse? How did I become someone who was making surgery on animals, who was doing stitches and giving out medicines and making fluid therapy calculations? How could I do that when I couldn't count? Because my passion for my job overtook the difficulties of working out the numbers. I made a way to work it out and I stuck with it. Even when people would tell me, you know, if you did it like this, it would be much simpler. They're like, oh no, I don't see that. And I'm a very visual person. I don't see that. So I'm going to do it my way because I'm comfortable that way. And that way I don't make mistakes because I'm not worried about it. So walking our talk when we start, very difficult. Because you have to get into a very, very uncomfortable place. Because you're going to watch people who are looking at you with a disappointed look. They're not going to do what I want them to do. They're not going to be who I want them to be. How dare they? What am I supposed to do if they don't do this? And this is part of the thing. Many times, someone else's idea of what you should do is something that they would always have wanted to do themselves, but didn't quite get there. Sometimes it comes from a really deep place of need because they were not fit enough, clever enough, or had the opportunities that each generation have more of, it would seem, as time goes on. And so had they had the opportunities, they may have gone on and done what they're asking you to become. But actually, we're all here with a purpose. And more often than not, we very rarely find that purpose by doing what someone else wants us to do. Their ambitions for us, their ideas of what we should be. I read something the other day which has stuck with me. Hell is meeting yourself at the end of your life and seeing the person you could have been. That's an interesting idea to think of. If you're not being the person that you really could be, and you get to the end of your life, and this other person comes with your face and your body and says, look, this is what you could have done while you were there. And what you did was play safe and stay hidden and not shine. Shine is one of the most important things for me. That thing that lights you up from the inside. The passion that makes your heart beat faster. That lights your eyes. That makes you get up in the morning, ready to rock and roll for the rest of the day. Looking forward to doing what you do, speaking to different people, learning something new, maybe every day. I've learned a lot of things in life, but do you know what? The biggest thing I've learned, you never stop learning. The only time you stop learning is when you no longer have this body. And even then, who's to say? Because nobody came back to tell us yet. Maybe we learned to be a different way entirely. Maybe we are just starting our lessons. What do you think it would be like if you only learned one thing, stayed in one box of dogmatic thought, without a window on another world, on other opportunities? That box, that room without a window, is that cloth of limitations that we build, that we weave every day when we tell our stories. So many times I have people who are coming to me and say, "Oh, Leslie, I'm so tired. I'm just so bored. There's nothing I can do about it. There's just nothing to be done." And as you can see, they're actually wearing that. Oh, oh, I'm so tired. What else can be done? There should always be something else to be done. But we get stuck in a familiar place, which is fine. Familiarity is what we all look for as human beings. We sort each other out to what's familiar. We like what's familiar. It's safe. But we have these things called adrenal glands that get fired off when we're in a space where it's not quite so safe, perhaps, unusual. These days it's called stress. But actually that response was a survival mode. And you'll often find people who are like actors and actresses going on stage will be very, very stressed and a little afraid, stage fright, just before they go on. That's their adrenal glands going in. But once they take that next smallest step onto that stage, it's gone. Because they're stepping into someone else's life. They're stepping into someone else's story. Actors get to become different people, sometimes even different things, depending on the script. But think about it. We are never just one person. To some, we're a sister. We act differently and we speak differently as a sister. To some, we are a mother or a father. We act differently and speak differently as a mother or father. To some, we are a boss, and we certainly act differently and speak differently to people when we are being a boss. To some, we are a victim. And my goodness, when we wear that coat, what happens to us then? To others, we're a hero. A lot of the time, we don't even know that because we're making marks.
True.
All the time we're making marks. With words, with actions, not even realizing what we're doing or saying is getting stuck right in the heart. Boom! In there. And it sits and it waits. Now, hopefully it was a nice thing that we said. But sometimes when we're angry and we're upset, we let go, we let fly an arrow of despair, of hurt, of anger, jealousy. We let it fly, and we're never really truly aware of where it hits. But still, it's our responsibility. A little while ago, I'll give you 2 examples. My goddaughter came up to me, and I didn't get married until I was 50 because I had other things to do. But you see, a mark was made on me when I was a little girl, another mark. I was told, never get married until you're at least 45. So I took it 5 years more. Because they were dissatisfied in their marriages. They weren't fulfilled. They weren't happy. So they just said to me, just as a laugh, as an aside, don't ever get married till you're 45. That's an adult thing to say. You don't say that to a child. But it stuck. And at one point, I actually passed that mark on. And I said, never get married. You don't need a man to be happy. It's actually true. You don't need anybody else to be happy. You should love someone because you need them, not you should need them because you love them, not love them because you need them. Because that's not a balanced relationship. There's a definite difference in there. But at the same time, if that balance is not right and you love them because you need them, if they don't need you, something's not going to work. So that was my point. I was telling her, be sure that you're going to get a partner who's equal to you, who's going to lift you up, support you, walk alongside you, not all over you. But I talked to her recently and she said, why did you get married? You told me never to get married, and that's why I never got married. Oh, really? Oh dear. Let's have a chat. She's still young enough to change this. And then the other way. A few years ago, I was in Brittany. We'd been doing a space clearing at a house in Brittany. And we were invited for drinks afterwards. And some of their neighbours had come over. Some expats had come through. A couple of people from England. Now, for an hour we were there, having a chat, as you do, just shooting the breeze, having a little, what do you do? Oh, we're doing this. Oh, yes, I heard. And isn't it lovely? And why do you do that? How is that works? Oh, I'm kind of interested in that. Tell me a little bit more. In the space of an hour, there's not really a lot when there are other people coming in and out that is going to be said. But I must have said something. Because about 5 years later, I was sitting in Glastonbury in a room above the high street. And I'm looking across the room at another person, thinking to myself, you look really familiar. How do I know you? And we have a talking stick that goes round. So everybody gets to introduce themselves. So what we were supposed to say was who we were and how we got there. What brought us to this point in time, this space in time. And the stick went round to this lady. And she said, my name is, and I'm here because of her. Me? Yes, don't you remember? I met you in Brittany, and it all fell into place. Oh, okay. And you came here and did 2 years training because of a small conversation that we had over drinks in France. So you see, you don't have to shout. You don't have to be bellicose. You don't have to be verbose about it. The smallest thing that you say sometimes can have a really big effect, especially if the person who's listening is open and is not guarding their thoughts. Which is how we get to the point of when we're choosing to walk our talk or we're talking someone else's walk. That's how we end up speaking their beliefs, their values, their hate, their need, their idea of what's right or what's wrong. And many times we don't get to make up our own mind because we're completely in this box with no windows and no sound can come in. So if I was going to say one thing to you, it would be listen to that voice that you hear before it comes out in your own voice. When you think or you're looking at something on television, you think, oh, I might like to try that. And then somebody says, oh, you don't want to do that. That's just daft. You can't do that. Are they telling you that you can't do that? Or are they telling you that they can't do that? And if you did it, they would feel less of a person? Do we understand that we're responsible for what we say and what we hear and how we take it in? We can filter things quite happily, and we do all the time. Our brains, our minds are so immeasurably wonderful. We are so connected into the universe that we actually have a distribution center in our minds that deletes, generalizes, and gets rid of anything else that we can't actually cope with all at once, because we're getting all the information all the time. And we'd go mad if we had to deal with that all the time. But what we do keep are things that are universal mind, I like to call it, because I don't like the idea that it's unconscious, because it's jacked into everything. The universal mind is saying, oh, okay, Leslie likes this, so we'll let that one go in. She's kind of curious about that, so maybe we'll just give that a tickle and say, you might like to have a look at this later. Leslie doesn't like that, put it in the bin. She doesn't see it, don't even go there. So, like Google, and actually when you think about it, Google and other search engines are actually doing what our unconscious universal minds will do. Generalizes, deletes, edits, and provides in our inbox that which we will actually appreciate and look at. And therefore we start to train ourselves not to look beyond that. If I could give you one piece of advice on how to walk your own talk, and how to think your own thought, and how to speak your truth, it is look at one thing that you wouldn't normally look at every day. Read one article that you wouldn't normally pay attention to every day. Pick one food that you wouldn't normally eat. Try it. You never know. It might open up a whole new world of joy. When it comes to food, it could end up bringing you a whole new world of hurt if you're not careful. But you're never going to know unless you try. Like I said, walking your talk and walking your own talk means you have a duty to yourself. It also means that you're leaving a gift to the people coming in front of you, to the people who are coming up. You're showing the children it's okay to have a voice. It's okay to speak. It's okay to understand that you can cry. Crying is very good for you. And did you know that for different things that are happening in our lives, tears are made up of different chemical formulas. There's different tears when you're hurt, different tears when you're grieving, different tears when you're angry. Is that not amazing? And doesn't it make you realize that actually we're releasing those toxins of those things that we're feeling in our tears? There have been many, many, many great wonderful teachers who have come into this world. But when you take all the dogma out and you bring it right down into the basics, what they're telling us is be respectful, keep your balance, live in harmony with the world and each other, pay attention, and walk your talk. Any questions? What we need to be doing is asking questions. Not just of each other, but there was a guy called Descartes, and some people who know Monty Python know him in a very silly song, but he was someone who would always ask questions. He would never take for granted what was written in front of him. He would look and he would ask. And he was a bit of a doubting Thomas, to tell the truth. But interestingly, he lived in a time when the Spanish Inquisition ruled the world. But what was going on then was the Great Plague. People were dying everywhere from this plague that was brought, presumably at those times, we thought, by the rats coming off the ships. And it was worldwide. It was a pandemic. Kind of like what we're going through now, but this one's a bit cleaner, let's face it. We have a little bit more in the way of understanding how to stay clean and how to not actually get badly hit that way. So what we've got to understand is that asking questions is not entirely a bad thing. What you may well find is that the person you're asking the question of will get very, very upset with you for asking it. And that's not always because you've said the wrong thing. It could be because they don't know the answer and they're embarrassed to say that they don't know the answer. And that's another thing about walking your talk. Don't be afraid to say you don't know. Because we all start from a place of not knowing. I just discovered recently that Donald Rumsfeld, who was the guy who did the speech of we don't know what we don't know and when we know that we don't know, and it goes on and convolute and convolute and convolute. It's actually called a Rumsfeldian thing now. If someone says something that's slightly confusing and convoluted, it's Rumsfeldian, which is a bit of a mouthful, but there you go. And it can be, when you get right down to it, if you don't know, it's the best place to start, because then you can learn. Then you can learn. And just because you learn one thing doesn't mean it's the absolute truth. The truth has many faces. When it feels right in your heart, when it sits quietly in yourself, in your being, then it's your truth. When it doesn't hurt anybody else, and when I say it doesn't hurt anybody else, I don't mean that, you say something and someone doesn't agree with you and pouts. That's not really hurting. That's just taking the huff. Because, the person said something, how dare they say that to me? How can she think that's true? That's not true. It's not true for them. Doesn't mean to say it's not going to be true for you. And this is what this world is about. We are here on this world and we're all walking paths. We're all crossing paths. And it's quite good when we cross paths to be able to cross paths kindly and nicely, but also learn something from each other on the way. And this is a great opportunity, this media that we're dealing with at the moment, being able to Zoom and talk on Facebook and do all the other platforms and social media that we can do. Because we can talk to people on the other side of the world. I mean, look at me, I'm in Scotland. It's extremely cold outside. We're going to have snow later on tonight. I was talking to Iyke earlier on, and he's in this beautiful sunshine and gorgeousness. And I was like, oh, that would be nice, just to have some sunshine again. But you know what? I'm Scottish. And it really wouldn't bother me that much. Basically, I'm missing the sunshine because I used to live in Monaco, and it was very sunny there all the time. And it was good. I kind of miss it. But you know what? The sun will shine here. The sun always shines. And when it shines, then we get to see what's really in the light. And that's what's good. The light goes deep into the ground and warms the seeds of knowledge that are there. And if you feed those seeds and nurture them and look after them, you will grow a tree of knowledge, the fruits of which will be feeding their forebears, teaching them all the time. So look out for the marks that you make. Make them consciously, be aware of what you're saying. Because little ears have big, big hearing possibilities. And they will take things into themselves. When we notice people and read their faces, read their body language, we can understand when people are upset. If we choose to, we can also choose to be so self-involved that we don't see it, we don't hear it, we don't feel it. Now let's face it, we're human, there are going to be days that happens. But we don't need to hit ourselves over the head with that. We just look at it and say, you know what? That wasn't good. Let's try better. Let's do better. Let's be better next time. And make a conscious effort to do that. Just one small thing to change. One small thing to try. One small thing to do. And it's amazing where that will take you. I mean, I ended up in a zoo at the age of 11. This woman who everyone was terrified of, who we called Genghis Khan in a dress, not to her face, mind you, but she changed the course of my life. She left a wonderful mark on me, which almost, but not quite, erased all the other marks that had been made about being stupid, about being not wanted, about being useless, about anything that anybody didn't like, and that would be my fault. But that doesn't matter now, because here I am standing talking to you, knowing that that doesn't matter now, it's in the past. It's what we do now. It's how we deal with things now that really counts. How we change our minds, how we change our stories to change our lives.
Yeah. Are we good? Okay.
Yep.
Can you hear me? Yeah,
Yes.
okay. That was so wonderful. In fact, I was just quiet to listen all the way. Yeah.
I did tell you.
A question just popped in. Can you answer this question?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a question. Okay, somebody just asked, what practical exercise can I do to detox other people's talk in my head that I am walking?
Right.
Did you get that?
Yes. What can this person do to stop the babble, the noise of someone else's talk in their head so that they can walk their own path? Yeah. Okay. First of all, you have to sit quietly. Take time, maybe once a day, and you can sit quietly and you can think about what it is that you're hearing. For me, it's a case of there's a voice attached to that. There's someone's voice attached to that. It could be a bully. It could be someone like my mother who could be very harsh sometimes. And she had her own wounds. And I've forgiven all of that. But still, I can hear her voice when I'm doing something that perhaps she would tell me off for. And so I recognize that as a separate thing. And I look at it and say, what are you? Who are you? Are you my fear? Is this fear talking to me? That I'm afraid that because I don't know what's going to happen if I go forward with this, that I'm going to fail? Then I would say to you, fail like a child. When we start walking, we fall down more than we walk. But we still keep going. So we have to actually sit down and say, what is the purpose of wanting to stop this noise? What is it that I want to do? What is it that they want me to do? And why are they not coming together? Is it something that really in my heart, I need to do? So meditate on it, understand whose voice it is, and then make a journal. Put your thoughts out on paper. Write these things down. What you hear in your head and the way it's said to you. In 2010, I was diagnosed with cancer. And having my background in medicine that I had, I was able to actually tell people what I wanted to happen next and to understand what was going on. There wasn't so much fear involved because I had a good idea of what was going on. I'd gone through the surgeries, I'd gone through the things I had to go through, the chemotherapy, and that makes you a little bit tired and a little bit, your sleep goes wonky. You just don't sleep so well. 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm sitting because I'm wide awake. And it's like a pause between breaths. And I just heard this. What makes you think you're going to beat this? What makes you think you've got the right to try to beat this? What makes you so different? And I thought, who on earth was that? This I do not need. This is something that I have to understand. Now I call this voice my opponent, because my opponent will wait for me to be at a point where I'm tired, or I'm vegetating, or I've just done something, or had a weak moment of just, I'm just going to sit down to this, I'm just going to let it roll over me and let it happen. And I thought, oh, wait a minute. I know that voice. That's the voice of a teacher who told my mother I would never make anything of myself, that I wasn't actually going to be able to work properly because I was stupid. And I'm not stupid. I'll let you in a secret. I'm a genius. So are you. Because we're all really, really good at something. We have all got genius inside us. But we all believe when people in authority, or even just the bully next door, tells us we don't. Because they say it with power, and they say it with conviction. So what we have to do is stand in our power and say with conviction, no, I am a genius. I am clever. I am vital. I am alive. And I can do this. So, small things. Nothing too complicated. Understand who it is that's talking to you. Understand where it comes from. And you can actually sit with a chair opposite you and put that voice in the chair opposite you and have a conversation and
Yeah.
say, okay, I'm looking at you. Who are you? What is that voice? What's your agenda? Why are you thinking that you can stop me by
Yeah.
saying this? And then ask yourself, what am I afraid of? Am I afraid of success or am I afraid of failure? Because if you're afraid of success, how can that be? Success is a good thing. Success is something that will take you forward and show people how to do what you're doing. If you're afraid of failure and that everybody's going to laugh at you, well, anybody who laughs at you and doesn't actually offer you a hand to say, come on, get up, try again, isn't really worth your time. And let's face it, have they ever tried to do what you do? Many times people will laugh at you and tell you you can't do that. And you hear it, you feel it. Because they're actually in your face. You can't do that. How dare you do that? Who do you think you are? And actually, they're talking to themselves. Because they're hurt. They've had dreams that have been squashed too. There's a Huna prayer. Huna is Hawaiian shamanism. And it's a very simple prayer. Sorry, I love you, forgive me, thank you. And you can say that to yourself every night before you go to bed for anything that you really need to know, for anything that you feel bad about. And you can say it to people who have really hurt you and let it go, because as long as you're thinking about them, they're taking space in your mind, they're taking space in your heart, they're taking space that doesn't belong to them. So let it go. I'm sorry, I love you, forgive me, thank you. And if anybody wants to know any more about that, you can get me on Facebook. Ike's got my details. I'll be happy to talk to you and to let you know how things work. And I can set you on a course with a couple of books from some of the people that I've read that have helped me. But understand that the one thing that will happen is, in order to do it, you've got to help yourself. You've got to make a decision. The decision is just a choice with some oomph behind it. And we could all do with a little bit of oomph sometimes. Anybody else?
Oh. Yeah, okay. I one question. Um, okay, I read. Okay, let me get it. Is it out of place to live my parents' dream? For example, achieving what they couldn't achieve.
If that's in your heart to do, because one person's dream was their dream. And this is sometimes it puts a lot of pressure on your shoulders to make that dream happen for them. You could do that and then about 10 years down the line be so unhappy that you think, oh, why did I do that? And for me, your parents want you to be happy. They want to see you fulfilled. But if you really, really want to do that for them, if your gift of love, your sense of purpose is to walk that path, then walk it. But do it with your own flavor. Do it with your own words. Make it your own. Find your own corner so that you're not actually just doing what they would do Because the one thing, and I'm not a parent, so I couldn't really say, but of the parents that I know, the one thing that I see them do is gift their children the tools to walk ahead in front of them, making their own way. Some of them will say, "Oh, I wish you'd carried on the family line. I wish you'd been a
Yeah,
doctor like me or like your grandfather. I wish you'd gone into the army." You know, maybe you don't want to go into the army. Maybe you're a peaceful person.
yeah,
Maybe the idea of running up the back end of Iraq with a gun in your hand really fills you with terror. Who we don't all need to be the same thing, because otherwise we wouldn't need to have individuality or different souls. We'd all be just the same thing, like little soldiers, like the Borg, a hive mentality, and we have minds of our own. You can honor your parents by being yourself, by being
right.
successful in your own way. It can be in the thing that they think that they would have wanted to do. But I would ask you to ask yourself, is it really what's going to make me fulfilled and happy? Or am I just doing it because I want my parents to be proud of me? And I'll let you know a little secret. They're proud of you already because you're asking this question.
Yeah, that's that's a nice one. Yeah, thank you very much, Leslie March. I have a couple of questions coming to my private
Yep.
chat box. Yeah, but we're out of time. We're out of time.
Pass them
I
on to me, and I will write them a note on Facebook.
Okay, okay. I'll
I'll
pass
send
it
I'll
on
send
to
the answer
you.
to you.
Okay. But I love the last line. One of the lines you talked about. Is this an exercise saying sorry, I love you, forgive me, thank you. You can say it to yourself anytime. Maybe you
Hmm.
messed up. Instead of allowing yourself to be traumatized, just recite this, repeat it to yourself, and say, sorry, I love you, forgive me, thank you. As simple as it is, it's so powerful.
Yes, it is.
Saying it to yourself, saying it to other people, it's so very much powerful. I so love you. And what you said today is so enriching. And I hope that our viewers over there could get this clear. Living your own talk, walking your own talk instead of walking the talk of other people. I appreciate you. I thank you for this rare moment. Can I ask one last question? How
Yes,
old are
yes.
you? How old are you?
I will be 62 in January.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, and
And
I'm going to celebrate that birthday with you.
yes.
I will celebrate it with you. Yeah, whatever way, either be in Scotland or here in Africa, I will celebrate with you.
Thank
I
you.
will, it's a promise. I will do that. Thank you very much. I want to thank you for this moment. So, everyone out there, our guest Leslie Marsh, you can follow her on. She's on Instagram. Search the name on Instagram. You will see her there. She's also on Facebook. Just type the name Leslie Marsh. You can chat her up. She'll be there to talk with you. So thank you once again, and I hope to have you all here next week Saturday with another exciting moment with Aloud. Aloud with Iyke is where I come with my friends. I come with people in all walks of life. They come to handle certain discourse or topics that can change your life. Next week we're having somebody wonderful. I just want you to stay tuned, and I'll be very happy to see you next week Saturday. Thank you for your time, and may God bless you. Bye bye.